Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Friday, August 19th installment of the Silicon Insider, the only uncensored look at life and business in the Valley. My name is Mike Malone, and I'm here with special contributor Scott Budman, technology reporter for NBC Bay Area. Our producer is Jordan Henderson. Our East Coast correspondent is Bob Grove, and our host, as always, is the Silicon Valley Business Journal. Okay, we're gonna talk about Apple a little bit, but first, I want to talk about a bit of news. Adam Neumann is back. I can't believe this. Sometimes these people that just crash and burn appear in some cameo role out there. But if people, as our audience will remember, Adam Neumann was WeWork. We talked about him our first year. We talked about him almost every week and how that company was falling apart, all the troubles they were having. And you would think that he would have just sort of slunk off into the night with his tail between his legs. But oh no, that's not, out front entrepreneurial behavior. He's back and he just got $350 million in funding from Andreessen Horowitz. Okay, well, this is for a housing startup, but there's no more details, right?
Right. It's for a housing startup. We don't really know what's going to happen with it. He hasn't laid out any details. Apparently, he impressed the hell out of Mark Andreessen, who's parting with all that money, giving this startup a valuation already of $1 trillion. So we have Adam Neumann and Unicorn once again linked. And not only did you expect him to slink away, he got away with hundreds of millions of dollars from the WeWork debacle. And
yeah, he looted the place on the way out.
That's a good way of putting it. And yeah, so right now, you can just imagine the eye rolling that's going on Sand Hill Road, but even beyond, and saying, wait a minute, how does this guy get not only another chance? This isn't like a redemption. This is a shot into unicorn status right away.
Yeah.
After fleecing investors, fleecing employees. There's an entire, series on WeWork called We Crashed. And still Andreessen is willing to give this guy hundreds of millions of dollars.
Now, Mark Andreessen may be the smartest person I know. Okay. And when I saw this, I thought, well, some, foreign investor threw a bunch of money, not really understanding this guy.
Which Mark is how he got rich in the first place. Remember. Who was the investor? It was SoftBank.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So, Mark, if you're listening, you might be, what are you thinking? I've never seen you make a play like this before. Was there any due diligence? I know you knew about Neumann when he came into the room. What was the heart of your decision? Why did you do this? And I'll tell you this, you said there's a lot of eye rolling, but you know what else there is? There's a lot of fury out there.
Sure.
And I found this in Fortune. Fortune said, Neumann's $350 million comeback is a slap in the face to female founders and founders of color. Question is, who gets a second chance in this business? I keep hearing that not only was a slap in the face, but what minority or woman entrepreneur, if they failed this bad, would get a second chance?
And it's not even a second chance. It's a first chance. Look, 2% of VC funding goes towards female founders. That's a tiny percentage. And Andreessen has been among many VCs out there beating the drum, saying we need more diversity in Silicon Valley. We need more diversity at the top. And this is the kind of thing that just slap in the face is a great way of putting it. It's a slap in the face to that ideal, to the idea that we're actually spending time looking around to try to find a diverse set of people to give money to. This is not looking around. This is going right back to the last guy who got a ton of money. And again, by the way, who fleeced investors and still got rich on the way out. So I think all of the fury that you speak of is valid. Just yesterday, I was talking to some female venture capitalists, and they're saying the same thing. How in the world do we have, of all people, Adam Neumann back? And again, as someone who just spent the better part of a year and a half in court listening to fraud charges. I don't know how Neumann gets another $1 trillion valuation right away like
Well,
that.
now here's a very interesting statistic. The $325 million is greater than the $324 million that is the sum of all money raised by U.S. Black-owned startups in the second quarter of this year.
Right. It's shameful because that is VCs taking the time to ignore Black founders. We know they're out there. They're just not getting funded. And while they're taking the time to ignore Black founders, they're for some reason taking the time to talk to, of all people, Adam Neumann about, of all things, real estate. It baffles. I don't know. You know, if he manages to solve the housing crisis, hey, God bless him.
Okay, well,
I don't see that happening. Right.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, this is deja vu all over again.
Right. And that's what I wonder. I mean, imagine right now, you know, they're trying to hire people and maybe give them stock options. And did anyone see that multi-part series? I mean, or read the books. I mean, there's just so much knowledge and scholarship about how crazily bad Adam Neumann ran that company. And now he's got yet another chance. And you're right. Many Black founders, female founders, they're just being passed over so that Andreessen can give money to this guy again.
Wow. Okay. Just an aside, all this turmoil in the South China Sea and Taiwan and China making all these threatening moves, I read a very interesting counter argument. And it says, because TSMC controls 90% of the world's chip production, the last thing that China wants, China needs TSMC more than it needs Taiwan. And that this may be the gating function between whether they attack or not, is if they flatten TSMC, it's going to wipe out the Chinese semiconductor industry too. So I'm just throwing that in as something I hadn't read before, but I thought it was, you know, interesting. It adds a new wrinkle. Or maybe that's why China keeps trying to convince Taiwan to, you know, come back, but it's not. It's dropping those missiles in the sea. It's not dropping it on, you know, the island.
No, it's not going to do that. But look, I mean, and you don't even have to look any further than our own desires here. I mean, Nancy Pelosi met with the head of TSMC when she was in Taiwan. That's not merely symbolic. That was important. But also, we're trying to do it on our own. We just passed the CHIP Act. Just the other day, Applied Materials had their earnings. They were pretty good. I think there is some optimism coming out of this. And these companies and our government, at least, are clearly listening to the automakers, the computer makers, heck, the refrigerator makers. Everybody needs chips. And that is really now front and center. Remember, and you and I have talked about how this industry was sort of in the background, taken for granted, and it's now come to the forefront. And so the U.S. is trying to do it both ways: talk to the guys over there, talk to the guys over here, and raise money at the same time for this CHIPS Act.
Well, you don't invest in stocks. I don't invest in stocks. But if I did, I'd be looking at semiconductor equipment manufacturers right now, because all that money is going to pour into chip companies. They're going to turn around and buy all that semiconductor equipment from people like Applied Materials to fill all those new fabs. I mean, I have a feeling that's going to be a booming business. Those guys are always the poor tail of the dog. They're the first into a recession and last out. And this may be their big payday. So we'll keep an eye on them. Okay. Little Google story. Apparently that Generation Z is now bypassing Google and using TikTok as its search engine. Is that for real?
It is, and it brings up a couple of interesting points. One, TikTok is just not only faster than Google, according to the young people, because I've talked to them about this, but also it's where they are anyway. So you're seeing a couple of clicks. But, you know, the big issue of TikTok is, and you just brought up the Chinese government, are they getting our data? Well, it's one thing to say we're uploading all these, you know, goofy videos and songs, but search data is really valuable. Look at Google's market cap. And if we're now giving that to TikTok, that's yet an extra concern you're going to hear about from politicians who are concerned that that China is able to get all this information from our young people.
Well, let's talk about the TikTok effect too. Facebook is now about to lose its status as a top 10 app because of TikTok. Okay, so there's another company being impacted directly. Now we learn it appears that their TikTok's in-app browser reportedly is capable of monitoring everything you type. So we've now got the youngest generation of this country getting accustomed to using TikTok as their search engine, and every keystroke is going to be watched now by people in China. That's a very chilling thing. And I'm surprised that no one has gotten into this. I mean, the government tried to stop TikTok, but now they got an open field again.
Right. You remember during the Trump administration, this was one of the big issues.
Absolutely.
It has since gone away for whatever reason. I mean, obviously, there are other things on the plate of the current administration, but this is one thing that former administration really did go after, was trying to say, hey, if TikTok is owned by the Chinese government and it's getting all our data, that's a danger. Don't you see that? And that is one of the things that really united both parties. They seem to agree with the president that was true. And so you saw this movement, whether it was Oracle or Microsoft or even other companies, to sort of take the American part of it. And I'm not sure how they were ultimately going to divide that. But, ByteDance, which is the Chinese company, was going to sort of not exactly spin off TikTok, but somehow get it into the hands of Americans. And I think because it doesn't seem to be quite at the, level 8 that it was during the Trump administration. But if this gets more politicians concerned, I wouldn't be surprised if we see yet again a move to try, both on the part of the politicians and even TikTok itself, to say, hey, we're American, watch, and to somehow try to prove that. And I don't know how they're going to do that, but I expect to see that rhetoric fly back and forth pretty soon as these news stories get out.
Should be happening right now. I mean, given that data, yeah. TikTok is now top 10 app. A whole generation of American kids are living on TikTok full time. I mean, this you're right. This was hysteria a couple of years ago. Like, we got to stop this company. They're gathering all of our data. Now we know it's actually even worse. The situation has deteriorated, and we have proof that they have all the access we were concerned about. Where's the resolve to do something about this? It's sort of like, oh, we've moved on. We got inflation now, so let's worry about that. I'll be real curious if we hear anything out of Congress in the next few weeks. They got an election, blah blah blah, but somebody's got to say something about this.
Well, you know who might, and you sort of hinted at it. We've got these tech companies, Facebook, Netflix. Even to an extent, the other apps in the Apple App Store are just getting their lunch eaten by TikTok. And if these companies step up and say, hey, this is a privacy risk for them, an economic risk, then maybe some momentum gets going in Washington. So that might be the key to all this, is the companies that are being pushed to the side by those young people in favor of TikTok, realizing they're losing a valuable revenue stream.
Well, we'll know if Apple says something, because Apple is so far into bed with the Chinese that that would be a high risk move for them.
Sure.
So if we see Apple reacting, then we'll know. So if Tim Cook says something, things will change. Okay. Apple's speaking of Apple is bringing its people back to work. Well, unfortunately, that means trying to get from Sunnyvale to San Jose is going to get hard again. All those workers coming back on 280, but the place has been so quiet over there.
Yeah, I mean, they've had some.
The mothership. There's like nobody there.
They've had some, but it's been a little bit here, a little bit there, a couple days a week. I think now they want to go 3 days a week, and it's really interesting how the movement to say, hey, I really like working from home has caught on to companies like Apple. I figured Apple would bring people back full time, all 5 days right away. We didn't build this spaceship so you can hang out with your cat on your lap while you're doing work. But I think a power shift happened somewhat. And these employees are saying there are enough companies out there that are saying, hey, part-time or even work from home, that they can tell a giant company like Apple, we're not ready for 5 days a week yet. And that's an interesting move.
I think Apple looked at the number of people who haven't come back to work in the US economy and realized we can't push this. If we force everybody to come back, maybe not everybody will come back. And where are we gonna replace those people? I mean, jobs were still going begging at the time. So maybe Apple said, better just bring them back slowly, not have a mutiny, get everybody inured to going back to work again after their 2-year layoff, and let's give it a try. It'll be interesting how fast they ramp up to 4 days, then 5 days. And then, if being a true Silicon Valley company, it's 6 days and coming in for a few minutes on Sunday.
Right.
So, okay, well, now here's a big one. And Grove wrote me this morning. I found it last night. Grove wrote me this morning saying alert. And did you read this about yesterday, I believe it was? Apple disclosed security vulnerabilities in its iPhones, iPads, and Macs. And this isn't just, a breach. This isn't just a hack. This allows full admin access to their devices.
Yeah, and the way this came out, and we're talking about, because you and I are talking on Friday, we're talking about Thursday night, and even to an extent Wednesday, this came out largely because, the tech press, the pretty deep tech press noticed this and started talking about it. Apple still has not made much of a deal of this, and I'm surprised at that. Even when I go on my...
Are they waiting until they send out a patch or something?
Well, they usually make it very easy, like, hey, here's an update. It's for security. If this is a real big thing, why haven't they done that? They seem to be very, if you kind of dig deep into their website, you find, yes, this is an update, a patch, there's a security concern. But you kind of have to do a little digging. And I'm surprised. This is supposedly the consumer company. Why aren't they telling us in plain language, hey, click here and we'll take care of this? And this is how bad news gets out and makes a company look bad, is when they're, for whatever reason, and I don't understand, they're not commenting on this. I mean, Apple isn't even commenting on the security concerns. It just doesn't make sense.
Part of it may be the magnitude. I mean, this is their entire product catalog, except for the watch, that's compromised right now. And
all the more reason to let us know.
You remember as well as me, 10 years ago, Apple said, buy our products because we're secure, we've never been hacked, and all of that. And now Apple looks like they're more vulnerable than most of the electronic devices out there.
Well, remember, when they became the big seller, all of a sudden they became a target. When they were 3% of the market, hackers didn't care as much. Now they do. And they've had concerns, in the last decade or so since they've been the dominant company. I'm just surprised at, if this is indeed something big, why aren't they telling us in big, bold letters? Either it looks bad because we have to find this from other sources, or it's going to look bad if we don't find this and devices get hacked. And it's like, hey, Apple, how come you didn't let us know about this? Oh, we did. You had to click several times on our webpage and read some sort of weird techie language. But this is Apple. These consumers expect something right on their phone that says, click this because you need a patch right now, and make it simple. I mean, Microsoft makes it simple. My goodness, I can't believe I just said that. Apple needs to make it simple.
Well, it's really odd for the world's largest consumer electronics company not to understand the marketplace. And we have a history in Silicon Valley of companies screwing up like this, with the Pentium bug, for example, where we just won't tell anybody because it's not that important, or we'll just fix it quietly. It never works. And Apple is the king of messaging.
Right.
And I mean, are they in paralysis of trying to determine what their message is supposed to be on this?
I don't know. But you're right. If this turns out to be something, they're going to be culpable, because they could have let everybody know really quickly and really simply. And right now, we're a couple of days into this, they haven't. And so you wonder how big this is or whatever, but they're clearly lowballing this. And yet part of Apple, whether it's the PR or marketing team, is looking at all these articles coming out without a response. And they're just biting their nails saying, why are we allowing this slow leak of bad news to happen? Why aren't we just taking care of this with a button on the phone? Hey, everybody, download this because we discovered something. It's an outside thing. We just want to be safe. They could have made this very easy and fast.
And this is the internet age. I mean, this isn't 1985, where it proliferates slowly through newspapers and wire services. This is going to grow really fast. And it has all the makings of hysteria. If it gets to the point you go, what if somebody's capturing all the information on my phone? What if they're taking it over? What about, I do my medical monitoring with my Mac. Is it going to kill? I mean, you know how this goes. Is it going to kill me? No, it's not a big deal. But wait a minute, somebody's controlling my computer and I don't know it. I mean, this thing can grow really fast and really dangerously.
Well, look, hyperbole or not, people are concerned. We're seeing the articles already, and Apple just isn't talking, and they're not making this easy. And that's their one job, is to make this stuff easy. So I predict today something will change. But come on, I mean, if this is big, let us know. If not, we'll let you know that we don't appreciate that you didn't warn us in advance.
Yeah, you better put your tie on, because I have a feeling you're going to be heading over to a press conference in Cupertino this afternoon. I hope so. I mean, I don't foretell good things if they don't come out and do something about this. So, okay, well, finally, I didn't realize it's the 24th anniversary of the iMac going on sale. Now, I happen to be at the introduction of the iMac up at Moscone Center. And that was really where Steve Jobs made his, great return. He came out on stage, and the device was interesting because it looked like a giant colored Easter egg. And even one of our regular listeners was there on stage, Kim Polizzi, the legendary Valley entrepreneur. She was there. I remember it was chaos. I mean, they had filled the main hall at Moscone Center, and there was cheering. Every announcement being made was cheers. I think there was a copy of Independence Day, a DVD taped underneath every chair. They brought out all these people. I mean, it was really something. But the big thing was Steve Jobs. I mean, more important than the iMac was the fact that Steve came out and he was fully integrated back in Apple, and you knew big things were about to happen again after a decade almost of lethargy and failed products at Apple. It was more of a turning point almost as the original Macintosh introduction at Flint Center. That was a smaller crowd. They weren't that enthusiastic. They were kind of skeptical, but like, what is this thing? Okay, it's interesting and it's cute. But the iMac event, that was just hysteria. It was wild.
Right. I mean, the small events, and you're right. I mean, the original iMac event, the original one, I wasn't there, obviously, but that was where, he convinced people this is going to be a different kind of company. The events for the iPod and iTunes, which were really, really important in Apple's comeback, but they were also small events because people just didn't know what was in store for Apple, or could they trust this to be, once again, a quality large company. By the time people knew that there was going to be a new iMac, the hype, the Jobs return hype had been so big. And the fact that the computers delivered, you could get them. They were easy to move around. They came in colors, as Mick Jagger famously said. And, all of this promotion, and it really did change the game again. And it gave Steve Jobs we started the show talking about second chances that may not be deserved. Steve Jobs proved that he and Apple deserved a second chance, and they really delivered, obviously, from then on.
I mean, that iMac was down to like 7 or 8% market share at that point, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it was almost a proud 7 or 8%. Like, well, the big, manufacturers can do whatever they want. Yeah. And yet at the same time, I know shareholders wanted more, employees wanted more, Apple users wanted more. And this was it was a home run right out of the gate. People wanted it. Then they wanted the mobile devices. They wanted to listen to their music differently. It really changed a whole lot. And the sales for that thing, people just couldn't get their hands on it fast enough.
Yeah, I think that was the appearance of the Steve Jobs persona. That's our image of him now. not the old, sick guy weekend, not the smarmy punk that ran the company before he got kicked out. This was Steve confident. He had a look and stalking the stage, that kind of, he was confident, but he was also slightly ingratiating to the crowd. As this is I'm back with the family. It's good to be here. And from that point on, that sort of, and another thing, vocal tick he would use as a kind of a setup for the big announcement. All those things started emerging at that iMac introduction. And
right,
the fact
I remember he was the iCEO for a while. Remember, as in the interim CEO.
Yes.
And I remember at one of those events, he dropped the I from the graphic, and there were cheers, and there were even people like moved to emotion. The idea that he was back in charge. It was, there's a cult around that guy. I get it.
And you could see it coming. I mean, they brought out some other people before Steve, and it was one of them was the new CEO, the guy who'd come from National Semiconductor, and he was completely out of place in that room. And he was talking, everybody was going, okay, where's Steve? Where's Steve? Then Steve comes out, and they held him off for a little while. I think it's because the old guard at Apple knew that the moment he appeared, they were invisible. He was gonna, and they tried to connect themselves with him, but this was a rock star coming out. Even though he was, he had left, under a cloud. Now he'd pretty much failed. Separate from Apple, he was back, and he knew it. I think if I remember right, he was a little nervous because he wasn't quite sure what kind of reception he would get either. And then when the crowd lit up, boy, he lit up, and nothing stopped him again after that. And he had carte blanche to do anything he wanted, and he did it. So, any last thoughts? Did you ever have an iMac?
I did not, but I knew a lot of people who did, and they loved them, and they were easy to use, and they even had. It's funny, you think the way things went. They had the slide, you could slide the disk in, and then the laptops, and then all of a sudden, you couldn't use a disk anymore, and it was all Jobs doing these things that people were like, "This is crazy, and it'll never work." And then it worked, and people bought them, and then you throw Pixar in there, and you're right. I think the legacy, that's one of the reasons one of the things I was thinking about, on the 24th anniversary is what is his legacy? And it was as I think a vibrant, healthy individual. And I know the Isaacson book ended, sadly, but I think it did bring back a lot of the strength and a lot of the real important stuff that happened 24 years ago. And that's a great way to remember him and, the innovation that the Valley is famous for.
Looking back, I actually inherited one from my mother-in-law. So I had one sitting at my vacation house, and it's really not a very good product. I mean, it's got good guts, but it's unwieldy. If you try to pick it up by that handle, it pitches forward because it's not balanced. It's kind of a pain. And it was clever, but it was clever more than functional. And it was kind of a sidetrack in design, and the company got back. But boy, we love those colors. After 2 decades of that same, eggshell white box, to see those brilliant candy colors was quite something.
Right, now, all these years later, people expect their phones to have different colors. I mean, it's
the big announcement of the new iPhone leaking out are the new colors for this season. So electronics became fashion that day. All right. So that's it for now, folks. You can find us on the Silicon Valley Business Journal homepage, as well as on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.